Today, I wanted to talk about navigating the world and navigating the kind of leadership that we have right now. And there's a couple of things that are on the top of my mind. And one of them is around the three greatest global fears that we have, or the three fears that everyone has globally at this time and has had uh, for Angel Sarian, one of my mentors, used to talk about these three fears, and the three fears that we have right now are around war and plague and a deepening crisis in leadership. And so, how are we developing leaders? How are we accessing from our inner world uh, some kind of a way to like, I mean, really, what does leadership means? It means to lead. It means to show the way. It means to model or to guide or to assist or to right. And no matter who we are and no matter where we are modeling for someone, and someone is looking up to us. And I, um, in my work as a teacher and as a visionary, and I do a leadership training. And I'm teaching that leadership training this year with Shauna Christie. And in that leadership work, some things that we talk about is we talk about how to develop our inner warrior or our inner leader. And leadership is really to be a warrior. It means to be a warrior and not a worrier, not a worrier, but a warrior. And so how can I express what I stand for? How can I express who I really am and how I want to uh, experience the world and how can I align with my values and with what I know is most essential and most important and that's not only in our work in the greater world or in our communities, but that work really starts with who am I in my house. Right, like, who am I in my home? Who am I in my house or my apartment or in my who am I with my family and my loved ones, my friends? And we can think about that as the first place where it's, "Oh, who am I being? And how am I being? And why am I being this way?" So, who am I being? How am I being? And why am I being this way? And I think that one of the things that's essential is that we begin to have spaciousness or some kind of spaciousness. In the autumn, one of the things that we look at is we look at going into the silence and creating spaciousness for ourselves so that we can lean into a quiet, a deep, deep quiet. And that when we lean into that quiet, when we lean into that place, we can hear ourselves, right? And I think that's one of the things is, we don't even really have room to think and or space to think. But autumn and the season of fall asks us to, this is the cycle that asks us to not only gather and harvest and nourish, but also to let go. And it's difficult to think. We have so much incoming. We have so many people and places and things that are incoming, and it's like a deluge. It's a deluge of uh, just so much stimulation, and we need to slow it the fuck down. Like really, we need to slow it down. And so, when we think about love and we think about leadership, we think about, oh, it starts inside of me. And how do I lead myself? How is it that I'm leading myself? And I think that like everything in the world right now is showing us ourselves. It's really showing us how destructive we are and but also how loving we are and how difficult we are and how tender and loving we are and how shut down we are and also how intimate and open hearted we are. So it's we're being shown everything all the time about who we are. And so I think for me, one of the questions I've been asking, I just had a birthday. Um, one of the questions that I've been asking is, who do I want to be? Who is it that I really want to be in my life and in the world? And so I think about these global fears that we have of the deepening crisis in leadership is also about, our ability to set some limits and some boundaries with ourselves and with each other. But also about how do we learn an entirely new way to navigate? Like, how do we navigate all of this territory, like this sacred territory where we're leaving a legacy. We're leaving a legacy. We're always leaving a legacy. There's an inheritance. We're giving away our actions. Our actions are giveaways, and we're giving those away. And so, like, even today, I can just think about, well, what is it that I'm giving away today, or what are my actions today, and what are they doing, and what is the possible impact of those actions? And then if we think about our actions, then we go to our thoughts and, what are my thoughts doing, and why are my thoughts doing that? And can I watch them and see their impact on me? And then can I see that link between what's happening inside and what's going on outside of me? And so if we can, really start to navigate, if we can start to see that there's like a navigational system, and that we have been giving away our kind of our GPS, or like the GPS of our spirit and of our character and of our wisdom and of our thought processes, and to a lot of streaming. There's a lot that is just kind of coming in and streaming into our unconscious. And, Carl Jung talked about how, the symbol is the mechanism that transforms the unconscious. And so we're receiving so many symbols, all these symbols all the time. And it's a lot. It is mucho, mucho, many, many, too many images and symbols for our unconscious to handle. So what happens is there's too much input, and we're spinning. And how do we stop, spinning? How do we like slow that down? How do we come into the natural cycles? How do we come out of our addiction to the intensity of all of that information coming in all of the time? And, we're evolving, and we haven't evolved to have that much input into our brain. We are cyclical, just like the other animals on this planet, like the birds and the deer right? There's a couple of things. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot is how much we waste, and I've been thinking about wasting. And one of the reasons I've been thinking about this is, and I'm writing about this also. I'm writing a piece about this right now, but there's a wasting disease that's impacting the deer and the elk and the moose, all of the deer family. And hi, Richard, good to see you here. Um, and I am really, my heart is broken by what's happening with not only, the human animal, but with all of the animals that we're interconnected with. And one of these is the deer. And so the deer, I have a sweet place in the mountains up in Idaho, and it's very rustic. It's like 5 acres, and I love it so very much. But it's very much in the middle of nowhere-ish. Nowhere-ish. When I took my brothers up there for the first time, they were like, "Not even God knows this road is here." I was like, "God knows, Creator knows that this road is here." But they were just like, it's remote. It's the very top of a mountain, Tamarack Ridge, um, between Montana and Idaho. And it's an incredibly beautiful place, but a lot of deer. There's grouse and deer. We have resident bobcat. We've had moose and brown bears, black bears on the land. And um, I will sometimes have retreats there, and it is an incredibly, incredibly beautiful place. But I've watched many, many deer be born there. So the doe, they know that it's safe because we have like a no trespassing and a no hunting signs all around the property. And so they know that it's safe. So they come there to have their fawns, And so I've been able to see these mother deer, like, literally, I've seen fawns stand up for the very first time and seen, watch them nurse, and they're like little spiders, they're just like their little legs are like spiders, and they're like a little water skipper, and they have their hands out and their arms out, and then they just kind of try to, stand up, and so I've watched many of them be born, and then, they stay on the land and they stay with me, and um they become, like residents. And of course, we have my mother, who lives there. Also, she has surrounded all of her flowers and things with, deer fencing or some kind of way to keep them to their own, so they won't eat her flowers or her garden because she is an avid gardener. But she grows her own food, and there's a lot about, like, food sovereignty and food, sustainability, and, um, but so she fences everything. So the deer can be there quite happily, and, so I've gotten to see a lot of them grow up, and my mom called me about a week ago and said that there was a buck, or, like, we have this buck, he's like an 8-point buck, he's so beautiful, and but he died on the land. And then she did more research and found that it was this wasting disease that a lot of deer are experiencing. And then there was another one, and there was another one. And my heart just broke. And what happens is they just waste really, really quickly. It's like it speeds up the process of wasting. And, you know, she called the state, and she called them, and they said that they, of course, don't have the people to, um, available to be able to remove the deer because there's an employee shortage, and that, the people who would normally come and get them are not able to do that at this time. So, for me, I mean, the stag is a symbol of leadership, and cross culturally, any animal that has a crown or, antlers, or but anything above the forehead, which is one of the reasons, like, there are crowns, or there are, in the Mayan tradition, we have these little feathered, lovely feathered headdresses or crowns that we wear, and there's always some form of crown or headdress that goes above the forehead, um, and so that's one of the ways you can, recognize the leaders in a group, is that there's something, or at least in the ancient traditions, there was always something that, you could see that was a little above the forehead. And that was like the symbol of a leader who had been chosen because of their actions, right? Because of their actions, and because of their character, and because of, like, who they are in the world. And so I had this heartbreak of losing this deer, and I just felt like this wasting disease, and I think we've all got it. I think we all have this wasting disease, and we waste and we waste, and, um, you know, I I have, these refillable, like, soap bottles. My partner and I got these refillable bottles for the kitchen, and so we refill our soaps for the kitchen, but really trying to find the things to refill all of the things in your home to make sure that you can clean yourself and all the other, uh, uh, things that are in your home. Yes, there are a lot of, there just aren't a lot of alternatives for people who don't want to be wasteful, and it takes a lot of energy and time and privilege to be able to, in any way, find the things that are going to, not be wasteful. And so I think of this deer, and I think of the leadership, and I think of what's happening in our in our world and in our country, and I think about, the waste. And I think about how this, leadership is a result of, right. I'll say this. So at the core of any group is, like, we want to look out for each other. The core of any tribe, the core of any, when I'm at Sundance, when I'm Sundancing with my brothers and my sisters, I like, we take care of each other. Like, you have to take care of each other. There's no way you cannot take care of each other. And and it's like, really we need each other. Like we need to be in relationship to each other and to care about one another and to care for one another. And that's how we go into the future. So connection is really important. So making sure we have enough connection as much as we need the silence, time for reflection and time for integration, we also need connection and love and other humans. And uh, no matter where we're from, no matter what country or land we're from, we like to hang out in groups. Like humans are pack animals, right? So it's, we're pack animals, and we like to be in groups, and we like to build towns, and so we're tribal creatures. We're pack animals, and it's important that we're able to recognize that right now we're really in a time where we need to do revisioning. We need to be revisioning about what that means and about how we're going to do that, and um, how to protect the world and how to care for the world. And one of the ways that we can do that is through developing our own character and by I mean, dare I say, right use of power, dare I say, right use of power and doing the right thing and excellence and right action, but especially developing ourselves. And this is something I learned. I was for many, many, many years, I was the spiritual director at Bastyr University, and I would do their convocation. I would do their opening, the opening ceremony and the closing ceremony, a really sweet opening and closing ceremony for the students. Um, and they'd be welcomed physically by the physical, and they'd be welcomed, emotionally by the emotional. And then my work was really to welcome them spiritually to the campus and whatever their path, whatever their walk. And I, my path is cross cultural because I am a mixed race person, and and I would mix all of my different traditions and just share with the groups that were coming in about the soul of the campus and the character of the human beings uh, that were there. Hi, Lee. Hi, beautiful Lee. It's so good to see you. I'm so grateful you're here. Um, and so, as the advisor of as a spiritual advisor, I was in charge of the school, right? I was in charge of the soul of the school. And hi, hello. And so I was able to care for that by connecting with the other people. So Dan was the president, and Dan Church, and he was lovely. And we would talk about, like, what does the soul of the school need, or what do you think the spirit needs for the school at this time. And so I would reflect, I would talk to some of my mentors, and I would go to council. I would talk to some of my council members, and I would gather knowledge and information about what they felt could be useful and encouraging and uplifting to the students. And then we would develop a plan. I would develop a plan, and then I would present the plan. And something really lovely about Dan was that, I mean, I don't necessarily think people need to like my ideas, because I think some of my ideas are great and some of them are not so good, which is why we have a council, right? To really help us with our discernment. Um, but I would really discern what I was going to share with the school, and separate wheat from chaff, and then share with them what I thought would be most uplifting and supportive of the students. And so, like, for instance, one year there was a bell. I was like, it would be really good to have a bell so that people can call themselves present. And there was a bell that was installed in the courtyard that just reminded us to come to presence. And it's something that's cross cultural, that all cultures have bells. Also, keeping the sanctuary open for 24 hours for the students, which was also something that happened while I was there. And so there were many, many things that we implemented that were really to uplift and to encourage and inspire folks just to be themselves and to be able to inspire other folks, or other people. So I think when I'm thinking about navigating these times, when I'm thinking about navigating these moments that we're in, the first thing I think is, how can we like call ourselves present? How can we, it's like the bell in the courtyard. It's how can we call ourselves to this moment and stay in this moment and plan well, plan well and prepare well for what is coming and for tomorrow. But really, how do we stay in an deep appreciation and a gratitude of this time? The bell also calls us together, and globally, cross culturally, it calls us together. And so, how do we, you know, how do we call ourselves into community? How do we, reach out to other wisdom keepers or just smart people? You know what I mean? Like, who are some smart people that I know that I can, share things with, and that I can, really get another perspective or another view from. This is the fall and the autumn, and this is really the time of reflection and reflecting on, what worked and what didn't work, and what are the seeds that I want to plant for this coming year, and what are some experiences that I'd like to have, and what are some of the gifts that I have that I can offer to others in my world. And so I always like to look at character. In the mentorship leadership course, I always like to look at character, and that's the first thing that I like to look at. And character is, if we think about like leaders that we really admire. So, and I'm thinking of Dan. I'm thinking of Dan Church right now, who was the president for many of the years that I was at Bastyr, um, and uh, he was he had several really, really lovely skills, but one of the things was that he was always learning. And, one of the things that I always look for in a leader is someone who is always willing to learn and always willing to learn with others and interested in collaboration and also someone who knows how to give encouragement and authentic um, acknowledgement and appreciation and feedback. And that's one of the things that I've noticed in my own work is that where people in my mentoring work, I do a lot of one-on-one mentoring work with people, and where people don't feel appreciated, it's no bueno. They're not going to hang out, right? So we need to be able to offer and receive that authentic appreciation, acknowledgement, attention, acceptance. So there are different ways that we can encourage each other and really help one another with our character development and moving in the right direction with our character. And so every year I like look at, what are the things that I want to learn, or what are the things that I want to develop, or what are things that I see in other people that I'd really like to develop, and who do I want to be today? Uh, and then I'll reflect on what character qualities I'd like to develop, and I'll choose like maybe 1 or 2 a year, because it's if I'm really focused on it and I actually wanna do it, it's which I do, and I like to do that every year. It's 1 is a lot of focus, right? So, I think last year, mentorship and leadership is gonna be starting in January this year. So, this last year, and I'm still working with it, it was around sustainability, right? Sustainability and visibility, uh, creativity, love. Those are all like character qualities that I want to develop as a leader. And I think if we could be developing our character qualities as leaders instead of, you know, um, there's these other things like the need for attention, the need to do things right, the need to, or the need to be able to like have all the information before we do anything, right? And none of those things are actually that helpful. So what we want is we want to be able to navigate through looking at ourselves and developing ourselves, and of course leadership is all about relationships. Like it's all relationships. Like that's what it's about, is it's all relationships. So any leadership work that we do is about our relationships. And so one of the things that Angela Sarin used to say is she used to say that, you know, um, that, if we're too focused on the task, when we're just very task oriented, sometimes the relationships really suffer. And if the, relationships really suffer, then, the tasks don't get done. The tasks aren't, taken care of. And the same goes the other direction. Like, oh, well, if I'm not tending to the relationships and the relationships start to suffer, then the tasks won't get done. So it's important to recognize that a job is really any work that we're doing is really a relationship, and it's about relationships, and that it's about our interconnectedness. So what qualities would I like to develop in my life this year? What kind of character qualities do I want to develop? What kind of person do I want to become? And what kind of character qualities do I have in place that allow me to be that person? And what would I like to cultivate, or what would I like to encourage in my nature, or learn or grow? Uh, I think another really important aspect of leadership is collaborative leadership. Like, we all we need each other, and human beings need each other. And we've had this epidemic of loneliness, and people being siloed into just very small, you know, groups or couples, or by themselves. And we what we need is we need. This reminds me of I wrote about this for one of my books. It reminds me of the plaza. And the plaza is every city, every town that I've ever gone to in Mexico has a plaza. And the plaza is marvelous. The last time I went to a plaza was in March, and Tati, my adopted niece, we went to Bacalar, and to the plaza there. And it's lovely. And there's art and there's music, and everybody walks around the plaza, and the parents and the adults and the children, and every place I've ever been. And I go to Mexico often. I'm part Mexican, and so I really love it there. But there's a plaza in every town, and I love to go there and see my loved ones, my friends. And so when we went to the plaza also has like these little trucks, and I love elotes. I love those corn on the cobs that you get, and you can put all the yummy like spices on them. And then you get to walk with your friends and your loved ones, and maybe you see someone that you know who makes jewelry, and you're like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And then you have like so many of our relational and connection needs go unmet. And really, we need a village, we need a tribe, we need a plaza in order to do many things, but also to catch up on news, and to talk, and to see how you're doing, and to meet the new baby, or, to see who's a new grandmother, or to find out about, right, the latest musical, adventures of one of our musician friends, or to see the paintings or art, or just to connect and to remember what it feels like to be connected in a way that is good, true, and lasting, and super healthy. So I think that's one aspect, like places to meet, or, and even if we don't create those places in our cities and towns, um, because we'll have community centers, or we'll have meeting places in town, but how can we, um, create meetings with people that we care about? One of the things that I like to do is I like to meet every week with my friends to do writing. And so I have a writers group, and we've been meeting every week for many, many, 20 years now. It started with the Artist Way like 20 years ago, and we're just like still trucking along with our writers group, and just thinking about, I was talking with Lawrence about this last week about, time is art. Time is art now. And what are my arts? And what is it that I want to be offering, the world? What is it that I want to be, you know, what is it that I can offer with my, great ball of merit? Like, I have a great, there's this meditation in the Buddhist tradition, which is about the great ball of merit. And, you gather that great ball of merit, and you see all of the things that people are doing that have merit, and you're gathering it and gathering it and gathering it. Then you can give it away. And I think that's the important thing, is if we're going to serve, if we're really going to serve the world, and if we're going to serve the people that are around us and future generations, and serve the planet, like with our infinitesimal, beautiful, amazing, ancient, tiny lives, huge, gigantic, amazing, tiny lives. If we're going to do that, then we need to be, we need to be willing to share everything that we've learned we need to give away all of our knowledge and give it to the future generations. But we want to make sure we need to have a council. That's one of the things we learned how to develop in the course, in the mentorship leadership courses. How do we develop? How do we um, invite? How do we welcome council members, people we trust, who have wisdom, who've been through some things? Uh, and for me, it's older. Like, I always like to have people who are a little older than me, but now I have some council members that are younger, much younger than I am. And I love that. So it's just like, then we have all of the different like perspectives and views, right? From the valley to the mountaintop and all of the peaks in between. We have all those different perspectives and views. And so, where am I? I'd love to hear from you. Like, where am I? Hi, Brandon. Where am I with my leadership? Where am I with my counsel? Do I have a council of dependable people that I can kind of bounce things off of? And, and what about my leadership? And how do I navigate leadership? Like, when someone is asking me to guide them in something, or someone's asking for my advice or my wisdom, and I don't give advice unless someone asks me to give advice. Um, and I just think that's just like the best. Like, no one likes unsolicited, like, feedback. I don't know about you, but it's not my jam. And so I really like um, to wait until someone asks, or until someone, um, comes to me with a question. And then what I do is I just make sure that I'm really clear that, I would love your feedback on something, or I'd like to, hear your perspective on something. Because I think we all kind of lose perspective in the midst of everything, and we don't kind of see everybody as us. And so, how can we become creative instead of destructive? I think that's one of the questions that I'm really sitting with. How can we start to gather and give merit? How can we become generous, with ourselves and with each other? Uh, how can we begin to, uh, I don't know if I want to use this word, but model? How can we begin to model honor and respect, in such a way that it has a backbone, that it has strength, that it has courage. It is coming from a place of courage, and leadership is is about courage. I mean, and it's about backbone, and it's about the ability to stand, and it's about the ability to. In recovery, we have this saying. It's like, mean what you say, but don't say it mean. Angela Zarian had a statement. She would say, mean what you say and do what you say. And that would clean up like so much of our difficulty if we just mean what we say and actually do it. Right. And so I think that that's one of the things that we're running into right now, is that a lot of people are like saying that they're going to do things, but then not doing them, or doing the opposite of the things that they say they're going to do. And, we can always ask ourselves, like, hey, is this something that I'm doing, and or where am I doing it in my life? And how can I, appeal to my appeal to my, other side, right? That is going to go to council, and that is going to gather that great ball of merit. And so I wanted to actually um, do this is the beloved Joanna Macy. This is her World is Lover, World is Self book that she wrote. This is a classic, and she crossed over not too long ago. I wrote an article about her and Andrea Gibson, and um, yeah, just a little memoir piece um, about my experiences that I've had that involved the two of them. But they crossed very close together, and I really cherish them. Oh, Lee. Oh, so sweet. I'm glad you're walking in the woods, and yeah, much love to you, sweetie. It'll post later, so you can always watch the whole thing later. Yeah, this is so great. I love you, Lee. Hmm. And so I'm going to go ahead and just do the great ball of merit. Compassion, which is grief and the grief of others, is but one side of the coin. The other side is joy in the joy of others, which in Buddhism is called mudita. To the extent that we allow ourselves to identify with the sufferings of other beings, we can allow ourselves to identify with their strengths as well. And then it goes on to the Great Ball of Merit exercise. And so if you're in a place where you're not driving or if you're not walking your dog, um, then you can relax and close your eyes and open your awareness to the fellow beings who share with you this planet time, in this town, in this country, and in other lands, and see their multitudes in your mind's eye. And now, let your awareness open wider yet to encompass all beings who ever lived, of all races and creeds and walks of life, rich, poor, kings and beggars, saints and sinners. See the vast vistas of these fellow beings stretching into the distance like successive mountain ranges. Now, consider the fact that in each of these innumerable lives, some act of merit was performed. Some act of merit was performed. No matter how stunted or deprived the life, there was a gesture of generosity, a gift of love, an act of valor or self-sacrifice. On the battlefield or workplace, hospital or home, from these beings and their endless multitudes arose actions of courage, kindness, of teaching and healing. Let yourself see these manifold and immeasurable acts of merit. Now, imagine you can sweep together these acts of merit. Sweep them into a pile in front of you. Use your hands, pile them up, pile them into a heap, viewing it with gladness and gratitude. Now pat them into a ball. It is the great ball of merit. Hold it now and begin to weigh it in your hands. Rejoice in it, knowing that no act of goodness is ever lost. It remains ever and always a present resource, a means for the transformation of life. So now, with jubilation and gratitude, you turn that great ball of merit, turn it over and over and over into the healing of our world. Thank you, everyone. I loved to be with you. Thank you. And I hope you have a lovely week. And next week, I will be here with Brett Valley, who is an editor, and he has, uh, done some amazing work for me with my own memoir, and we're now um, editing some other material, but he's an amazing editor and he's done some incredible work with a lot of really beautiful humans that I respect and admire. And so he'll be here to talk about being an editor, and also about agents, and as he's also been an agent. And yes, so I really look forward to being with him next week at this time. You're welcome to join us. Have a great week.